Majeed Dashiru is a journalist and public affairs analyst who wrote the piece, PDP and the Consequences of Sailing Against the Wind in 2023. As we continue to focus on the People's Democratic Party and its quest to wrest back power in 2023, we are now being joined from our Rice Abuja studio by Mr. Majeed Dashiru himself to not only discuss zoning, but the possibility of the two major political parties in the land fielding presidential candidates from the northern part of Nigeria. To what extent has dominance of political power in Nigeria by northern political elite helped in ameliorating the multifarious socio-political and economic challenges that have stunted its growth and development in the past 60 years? Welcome, Majeed. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning.
All right, good morning. Good to have you join us. Well, let's start this way. I read your article, the one that you wrote in April, and I think that possibly came at that time before the chairman of the APC, Abdullahi Adamu, said that no decision had been taken as far as zoning was concerned. You know, the article that we refer to, PDP and the Consequences of Sailing Against the Wind in 2023. Your submission in that article was that if PDP fields a northern candidate against a southern candidate by the APC, that will spell doom for the PDP. And I'm wondering, if that was your opinion then, is that still your opinion now, and why will you come to that conclusion?
Thank you very much once again. Yes, my opinion remains the same because the facts available to me have not actually changed. Yes, the PDP risk going into oblivion if it fields a candidate from the north. And that is because, apart from the fact that after 8 years of presidency in the north, to save whatever is left of our national unity, social cohesion, and our continuous existence as a nation, it is imperative that in the interest of justice and fairness, as well as equity, that power shifts to the south. And in my understanding, the APC may have settled on this, irrespective of what the party chairman said, because we've seen the northern wing of the APC, the major stakeholders there, queuing up behind their preferred candidates in the south. We've seen the likes of Senator Alindume affirming their support for Minister Rotimi Amechi. We've seen the likes of Senator Kabiru Geya leading the campaign for Vice President Osinbajo. We've seen an armada of northern political establishment figures backing the aspiration of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And so it goes on and on. But unfortunately in the PDP, what we've seen is that those that are supposed to be backing their preferred candidates in the south are in the ring and are trying to slug it out with their competitors from the south, which is something that is repugnant to fairness and equity, because the PDP has largely been sustained since 2015 when it was defeated at the center by the support of its southern wing. And this is a fact. Between 2015 and 2019, it was the efforts, the votes from the southern flank of the PDP that has kept the party afloat. And in 2019 presidential election, the zone came out again to give its support to the party, and the party had a very powerful showing in the last election, even though it did not win, but at least it retained its support base and has continued to function as the main opposition party. Now, coming at a time that very base, that very support base, is agitating for this same presidential power on the platform of the PDP, it will be suicidal for the party to take for granted that very important support base that has sustained it in the last 7 years it has been in the opposition, especially given the fact that it has very scanty presence in the northwest and in the northeast, particularly in the areas we call the Muslim North, which is the stronghold of the APC. So I do not think it is a wise decision to gamble away a bucket of water when you are running after a mirage that is so distant. And so the PDP has to sit down and recalibrate its strategy and bring it in conformity with what serves its interest best, and that is to zone to the south. Otherwise, it will lose the south to the APC in the event that the APC zones to the same south and the PDP zones to the north. The APC will win the south and win the north, and the PDP will have no base. Because from the level of agitation we are seeing in the southeast, the south-south, and the southwest for power shift to the south, it tells me that the region has resolved to take its turn, and it is rightfully their turn. This was, made very clear by the Asaba Declaration of the 17 Southern Governors, when they came together across party lines, across religious lines, across ethnic lines, and affirmed their demand for power shift to the south. Ordinarily, we shouldn't be having this conversation because the principles of power shift or power rotation is one that is both constitutional and democratic, and it has served as the irreducible minimum basis for our national unity, particularly for a country that is as plural or as diverse as Nigeria. And so the PDP is even more duty-bound and has a moral obligation in this instance to be seen to be rewarding their very loyal base going into the next election if it zones its tickets deliberately to that part of the country. And I've listened to the argument of winnability. Now, even if the PDP zones to the north, and for instance, the APC decides to zone to the north, the PDP will still lose in the north and lose in the south because the APC is already very popular and grounded in the north. And so the north will not readily jettison a party that they have been used to embrace one that actually betrayed them in 2011 and 2015. And so if the PDP zones to the north, the south also feel betrayed and will either not vote for the PDP or simply even vote for the APC. And so head or tail, the PDP will lose if it does not zone to the south in 2023.
Gosh, I mean, I think many people would agree with you. Many people would agree with you, actually. So when we look at that dilemma for people who might not want that to happen, what do you think the best course of action will be? Because if we were to take a random poll of the public right now, of course that hasn't happened. We're just talking between ourselves here. Hypothetically speaking, if the PDP, we don't know what's going to happen, but for the sake of this argument and for the sake of this question, if the PDP were to, on the aftermath of their primaries, have a case where you have a presidential ticket with Atiku and perhaps someone like a Peter Obi, since he's been mentioned so much by our previous guests there, do you think that would do enough to satisfy some people and still keep others feeling included in the PDP's mantra for the future? Or do you think that would be, as you've already put it, a situation that would not see the PDP being able to take power back from the APC come 2023, if that hypothetical ticket were to emerge?
That will even diminish the PDP even more. It is very, I don't know the right word to use now. How do you begin to consider pairing P2B with Atiku Abubakar, former vice president, as running mate, when from all indications, from all opinion polls, from the words on the street, from every indication, it is very clear that P2B appears to be the most popular aspirant on the platform of the PDP. P2B appears to be the most widely acceptable aspirant. And this is not so far-fetched. The reason for P2B's acceptance today is because he is seen by many to possess the qualities needed to actually manage and pilot the affairs of a cash-strapped, debt-riddled, and poor-performing country such as Nigeria. Now, P2B has a reputation for frugal management of public resources and impressive performance as governor of 8 years in Anambra State. And his antecedent speaks clearly for him. P2B may not have been as popular as this a few years ago but the politics of patronage was the norm and was one that was widely acceptable to all Nigerians. But today that we seem to have come to our wit's end, we've seen where the politics of patronage and resource sharing has taken us to as a country. We are at the tipping point of becoming a failed state economically, security-wise, and on all indices of national development, Nigeria is failing. And so Nigerians, in their quest for good governance, appear at this point to be galvanizing support for that candidate whom they see as possessing the most important qualities that are required now to salvage whatever is left of Nigeria. And that person happens to be P2B of the PDP. And there's something the PDP may not have considered in its permutation so far. It is the fact that P2B comes from the Southeast. The Southeast, that is predominantly of the Igbo-speaking people of Nigeria, happens to be one of the big three ethnic groups in Nigeria. And so when you look at the Northwest votes, and you imagine, for instance, that the APC or President Muhammadu Buhari has a vote bank of 12 million votes, it is also instructive to note that P2B, with the massive support he's having from his home region and across the country, can be said to have a potential vote bank of not less than 10 million votes. Because if you look at the mathematics, the people of Southeast Nigeria are actually resident in all parts of the country. In fact, it is believed that the Southeast community in every part of Nigeria constitute the largest communities, second only to the indigenous communities or to the host communities. And so we've seen how this particular ethnic group has supported the PDP since 2015. And that is why whenever you have the PDP reaching the 10 to 12 million mark in every presidential election since 2015, you can be rest assured that an overwhelming majority of that vote comes from people of Southeast origin, wherever they reside, from Lagos to Abuja, Kano, Kaduna, and of course the Southeast. So we may look at the figures coming out of the Southeast alone and assume that the voting strength of the Southeast is negligible. It is not so. If you look at it from that perspective, you'll be missing a very important point. And what am I saying in essence? Why would the PDP want to risk a sure 10 million vote draft of the Southeast in search of an elusive 12 million vote that will not necessarily come to it, even if you field a northern candidate? Atiku Abubakar or Tambuwal or any of the other northern aspirants on the platform of the PDP do not have what it takes to pull the right numbers from the northern part of this country. So at best, what the PDP should do is to leverage on the 10 million vote bank that comes with the PDP candidacy and simply draw from the moderate and liberal votes in the north to make it up and win the presidency. So if there's any aspirant within the PDP fold today that actually has what it takes to win the presidency for the PDP, it's actually P2B because of his antecedents, because of his wide acceptability as we speak across the country, from the north to the south, from the east to the west. And so it will simply resolve all of the problems. It will zone to the south. It will also give the southeast that has been clamoring for this presidency for as long as we remember now, and also present a good candidate in the person of Mr. P2B. Let me say this. Zoning is not an anathema, is not an anathema to competence. Zoning and competence are actually mutually inclusive, because zoning is simply in advancement of the principles of social justice, equity, and unity, which is conditions, which is a condition that is preceding national development. Without unity, you can't have national development. And in zoning, you have to zone competently. And I'm saying when you pick a P2B, for example, on the platform of the PDP, you have zoned competently. You have presented somebody from the right part of the country that has the competence and the capabilities to deliver. And so the PDP will do itself a lot of good if it does not take the Southeast vote, and by extension, the entire Southern vote for granted. Some of the leading socio-cultural groups in the South, the Pandef, the Ohanese, the Afenifere, and of course, their allies in the North, those that we call the Middle Belt people, have come together severally to say, look, we need to zone to the south, and not just to the south, but to the southeast. And we're saying the PDP is fortunate to have somebody from the southeast that can go all the way and clinch the presidency if indeed Nigerians want good governance. And so it will be doing itself a lot of good if it does the right thing, because it will yield the right fruit. I listened to Chief Olisametu earlier when he said there are weak aspirants but strong candidates, and that there are strong aspirants but weak candidates. Primary elections of a political party are not in themselves an end. It is simply a means to an end. And the end ultimately is to get a good candidate that can win you the general election. And so the PDP is supposed to actually galvanize the structure and give support to P2B, who otherwise would have been a weak aspirant, to emerge strong and be able to lead the party towards a formidable attempt at the 2023 presidency. And if for any reason P2B does not win, he can at least secure the traditional support base for the PDP in the South-South, the Southeast, parts of the Southwest, and the Middle Belt areas, enough for the PDP to remain a major political party going into the post-Buhari era in Nigeria. Otherwise, like I said earlier, the PDP risks losing a strong base in the Southeast, the South-South, parts of the Southwest, and the Middle Belt, in chase of a mirage, and it will go into extinction because it will be sailing against the wind of zoning to the South. And from all indications, I still think the APC is committed to zoning the presidency to the South. From all indications, we have seen that nothing has changed, despite the statement made by the chairman of the party. Nothing significant has changed in the permutations within the party. And I believe that in due course, the leader of the APC, President Muhammadu Buhari, will do what is honorable, what is morally right, by aligning his individual support first, which he has a legitimate right to do, and he will also use his privilege as the leader of the APC to weigh in his support on his preferred candidate from the South and save Nigeria this tension and this acrimony over power struggle. And let me emphasize this. Power shift or power rotation is simply not a license to elevate one zone over and above the other. It is a trust and confidence building measure. It's a mechanism to prove Nigeria's oneness. And so when somebody from Borno or Kano decides to weigh in their support for somebody in Lagos or Rivers, it's simply a demonstration of our oneness. It means the man in Borno recognizes his oneness with the man in Rivers, just as the man in Kano recognizes his own oneness
all right, Majeed,
with the man in Lagos.
All right, Majeed.
And this is good for our national unity.
Allow me
and it will be hoped that anybody who becomes president will not also elevate his own section over and above the others.
All right, Majeed, allow me to come in now.
To be giving more to the other side in fulfillment of the social contract of equity, fairness, and justice. And so, to save whatever is left of the unity of this country, if you recall,
can you hear me, Majeed?
As divided as we are today.
Just a moment, because we are running out of time.
Than we were before the Civil War in 1967. And so, everything must be done to preserve the unity of this country. And you cannot do that without the principles of equity, fairness, and justice, which dictates that power should shift from the north to the south after 8 years of hibernating in that region. And that is what I think all parties should do in the interest of national unity, development, and national rebirth.
All right, it looks like we won't be able to take further questions with Majeed. We want to thank you so much, therefore, for joining us today. Thank you so much. We'll have to move on then. It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we will review top stories in today's newspapers. Do stay with us.